بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن سهلا إذا شئت. آمين. Okay, so we're gonna inshallah today be finishing up our discussion on the whole slavery thing, and then we can inshallah get through the whole Surah of Shams. There's a lot to ask because I usually don't do so great on time, but inshallah we will try to do that. Just for a quick review, we read the second half of Mufti Taqi Usmani's article, which I had shared on the group, where pretty much the second half was basically that there are some claims of people who most likely under the influence of like Western values and stuff that they say that, oh, Islam actually at the end of it eventually abrogated like taking slaves and stuff like that. And Mufti Saab says that no, that's actually not the case. So basically, they say that it's a mansukh, and they try to they act as if the fact that there's slavery that is still an option for the imam when performing jihad and stuff like that. That it's like a blemish to our deen. And Mufti Saab says that's not the case. And one of their proofs is that they quote an ayah, Surah Muhammad, of what's the ayah? Imma mannan, oh, wa imma fida'a. That's the ayah. But I'm just not quoting it from the beginning. One sec. Sorry. فإذا لقيتم الذين كفروا فضرب الرقاب حتى إذا أثخنتموهم فشدوا الوثاق فإما منا بعد وإما فداء. Okay, so when you meet the disbelievers in battle and you're able to overtake them, then you have so the ayah makes it seem like the only choices are you can either free them or you can ransom them. But Mufti Saab, he brings up from the actual language that the word "o" does not simply restrict it to those two cases. Another maybe an even clearer proof for ourselves is that from our side is that this is something that we see that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, after this ayah was revealed, that they quote is their proof, he still took slaves. Additionally, his last words were as-salah, as-salah, wa ma malakat yaminukum, or kama qala alayhi salatu wassalam, that he literally said that, make sure that you're very protective and very, um, you pray your salah, make sure you're praying your salahs, all of them on time, as well as treating your slaves well. Okay, so that's like clear cut right there. Additionally, we see that this after the demise of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we see that the Sahaba and the Tabi'un and the subsequent generations still practice slavery. So it's not mansukh. Then we got into a little bit more of the aqli dala'il and stuff, which, like I said, I had talked to a few people and I had listened to a couple of lectures and then I just took notes. So we haven't finished this, but let me just read through it again. It's only like 3 pages of notes, so we could probably go over it quickly, inshallah. So, like, let me just start. So there's a book called War Before Civilization by Lawrence Keeley, and he says that pre-modern war was mainly about manpower. If you have a larger army, you'll win. You'll be able to beat all the little guys. If you had too few people, that means that you're going to lose, and most likely that means that your lineage, your tribe, your people are going to be completely wiped off the face of the earth forever. Okay, so it's all about numbers. And numbers, the amount of soldiers that you have in your army, depends completely upon how many women there are that can give birth to soldiers. So, and then he also says that loss and gain of men will not much change the demographic position of a civilization, but if you have too few women, that is the difference between thriving and being completely annihilated. Okay, so all pre-modern, so what does this have to do with slavery and taking concubines and sex slaves? So he says that all pre-modern civilization took sex slaves, and if you don't take these concubines, you are at a huge disadvantage militarily because you'll be taking these women and then reproducing with them, and therefore you're adding more to your army. So this either you take them and you reproduce with them, or you just wait for the bigger fish to come get you, essentially. Okay, so you either take them or you yourself will go extinct. So there's no Okay, I wrote in parentheses, there's neither option that is happy, but that's the nature of war. Okay, so we like I said, a lot of times when we talk about these things, it's like it's not stuff that it's stuff that kind of makes our stomach queasy and stuff like that. But that's just what war is. In our deen, it addresses every facet of life, right? So there is no third option between these two. So yes, taking sex slaves is not just morally justified, but morally necessary. So that's enough of an argument. Okay, historically, especially. So it's worth to mention that our Sharia integrated slaves in the most beautiful fashion and is the most humane than any other civilization. For us women, we could like it's not like you can mutilate them or put them out on the street to prostitute them. If she gives birth to her master's baby, she'll be free when she dies, and many other examples of how easy it is to. Okay, so many other examples that show that they're treated humanely at least, as well as how easy it is for them to kind of get out of their being a slave. So all these ensure that the slaves, usually in like a generation or two, are free and are able to integrate with the larger part of the Islamic society. So whereas other civilizations would keep a permanent subjugated slave class that will always be slaves due to their ethnicity or race. So for us, if a woman was taken as a slave and she has a baby with the master, then she'll be free and she won't be considered a slave anymore. Whereas if I think in like China, there was when they would bring slaves over, like for generations upon generations upon generations, like hundreds of years later, just because a person's great 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 grandfather was captured in a specific war, and that person is not Chinese and that person is not part of that ethnic group, then they're always going to be considered a slave and they're never going to have an opportunity to be able to integrate into the society fully. So, like we said, slavery and war is not a fun time. It's not like the best topic to talk about, but our deen covers every single aspect of life. And Sharia does a much better job at preserving marriage and family than any so called human rights activist policy. Okay, now another one point about actual conduct of war is that if you look at other civilizations, some become cannibals. Like literally, when they beat their enemy, then they just start eating their bodies. We saw this in like I said, in the example of Uhud, where Hind she and they started like not eating, but at least biting the liver of the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And of course, in our conduct, in our in Siyar, in the books of Siyar and Jihad, you can't just torture for the sake of torture. This is explicitly prohibited. According to the majority, you can't even kill non-combatants, monks, children, elderly, etc. So war is inevitable, but how are you going to engage in war morally? What code of conduct will you have? And okay, so we have humanitarian rules of justice in our books. One more point is that, like I said, it's a little bit unorganized, but I don't think it's like so unorganized that you guys aren't like following at all, right? So if you don't take the women of the conquered tribe, like let's say all the men who pretty much died in the battle, so what are gonna happen to all the women and children that are in that tribe? So either they're all gonna die. I mean, you're gonna leave them out in the middle of their um wherever their village is or something, or you could take them back to your obviously you won, so that means you probably have a better civilization, you have a better infrastructure of a society and all that stuff, so, and they can be part of that society. Okay, and it's important to talk about these topics. This topic, I think, along with like um what would be considered like minor marriage today, and not minor marriage but like marriage of minors today, stuff like that. What else? um Wife beating, I think, would be another one probably. That it's important to be able to talk about these things. I mean, be equipped to talk about these things. Let me say that it's important to be equipped to talk about these things, because what happens is that like the atheist, non-liberal, I mean, the atheist liberal, he'll kind of be bringing up these topics to take away from the beauty of Islam. And if you don't have an answer prepared, what's going to happen to the audience is they're going to start thinking that, oh, this is just some like excuse making Muslim who's ashamed of this part of his religion, so he's gonna avoid that topic. Does that make sense? Like if you don't like understand the wisdom and the reasoning behind these sorts of things, then we're always gonna sound like we're just fakes trying to convince people that this is the true deen and that this was the last messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and people are gonna they're gonna be completely turned off by that. and then the liberal is gonna act like he's like gonna have try to have their like gotcha moment, you know. So it's very very important to have these discussions, like be prepared to have these discussions if they ever come up. Okay, now switching topics one more time. War in America is idolized. 93% of the US history, okay, and 93 was a number that I just Googled it and that's the number that came up. I'm sure it's close to that number if it's not the exact number. 90 plus percent of the US history is actually filled with war. Like, didn't they just get involved in another one yesterday? Right? So, but like no American, no whether Muslim, non-Muslim American, like we don't bat an eyelash at that, you know? In situations like to an American, like there's individuals who engage, like soldiers are considered heroes, right? I remember one time, like I didn't know what else to say, but basically we were coming back from our South Africa trip, and then we were just waiting to grab our luggage from the luggage claim area, and there was just this one random dude. He was like yoked. He's pretty big, right? So then, and then I just randomly started talking to him. I was gonna try to like be nice, give the hour and stuff when we were there, and this guy was just like, "Yeah, I'm in the Navy. I'm in the Navy. I had to do like I did 2 tours or something," and I was just like, thank you for your service." I didn't know what else to say, right? So, but like these people, like that's like the normal response, right? When you meet a soldier, like you thank them, you honor that you. There's a sort of like respect that you give because of that, because of just the service that they gave to their country, right? So if if war is justified, if like no like in America, no one's gonna be like it's immoral to go to war, correct? If war, killing, violence is justified, how is something lesser than that, which is sex, how is something lesser than that not justifiable? Now, I think this came up on our Wednesday discussion. Are you willing to go the route to say, like, if you're going to follow this line of reasoning to say that war is justified but taking sex slaves is not, are you willing to justify to say that sex is worse than murder, like worse than killing? Okay, which is, I mean, like if you could justify that war is needed at sometimes, you could also justify that slavery, like sex slavery, is needed at, or slavery is needed at sometimes, and that the whole concubine and having the milk yamin aspect plays a factor into it. Okay, so people's main like okay, oh, where is it that people? Okay, forget that. So people's main problem seem to be that the whole freedom problem, which is that like a liberal will bring up that okay, it doesn't matter how great you treated them or how that some slaves became like muhaddithun and like imams of their times, stuff like that. It's the fact that they're still slaves and they don't have the freedom to walk away. That's our main issue. Okay, we'll talk about that in just a second. The second thing is that they're just unfamiliar with it, so they just get really weirded out by this concept of slavery, or that they have this one idea of what slavery is, but they don't understand what Islamic slavery is supposed to be. Okay, for some reason, sex is seen as something worse than war. To say that being a slave is worse than being dead makes no sense according to utilitarianism, maximizing pleasure. Yeah, I think we had talked about this as well. And then this is I think Sobani had brought this up, right? About the whole people want to instead of people want to live instead of surviving. Well, being a slave and being alive is no one's gonna like everyone's gonna consider that better than according to like the principles of utilitarianism. Like you would have to accept being a slave, but being alive is a better opportunity to gain pleasure than being dead, uh, completely. Okay. Um, in the modern period, as we had said, the Imam has 4 options. He could kill them all, free them all, ransom them, or take slaves. So, and that's like according to like the 4 madhahib, right? So even in modern times, like let's say a person just for political, like the Khalifa for political reasons, he decides to, I'm just gonna keep them as prisoners of wars. We're not gonna take them as slaves. Like he's still completely following 100% strict Sunni Islam. It's not like he's deviated and become like, started making up his own opinion, right? And the difference between his siyasi decision and his hudud, okay, whatever. Hmm, okay. And then there's one interesting point that I saw too, which was that I don't know if I mentioned this on Wednesday, but last point pretty much. This is basically like the end of my random notes that I had was that David Gerbers, whatever his last name is, he has a work called Debt, like I think it's like the full title is Debt: A 5,000 Year of like the Economic History of the World or something like that. Argues that if you brought someone from the past, like Aristotle or someone, they'd assume that most people were slaves. So our idea of slavery is chattel slavery, the transatlantic slavery. But this was not slavery for 99% of the past. Most slavery did not look like how it did in America. Almost every single civilization practiced slavery. But to the liberal mind, the main thing isn't how were they treated, but the fundamental issue is owning someone. And then he brings up this. Is there really a fundamental difference between slave labor and wage labor, which is renting a person and owning a person? And he says that um, think about like if you were to rent like you your own house, okay, you live in your house, you want to keep it. You don't want to like you're not gonna just gonna punch a hole in the wall. You're gonna if you spill some like Coca-Cola on the floor, you're gonna make sure you scrub that out and try to keep the carpet clean. You go to an Airbnb though, like that's you I'm sure you guys have seen those like horrible videos of like how people treat Airbnbs sometimes, right? Like sometimes like renting something is worse than you treat that object worse than when owning something. So it's the same thing like if you're renting a person versus owning a person. So it was considered the same in these societies. The concept is the same in the contract between employee and employer and between like the master and slave relationship. If you don't fulfill this task, you are liable to have action taken against you. And it's just a cultural difference sometimes of how we see freedom and slavery. So in many cultures, to say that X owns Y is the same thing as to say X rents Y. And there isn't a difference for many cultures, and they both entail action being taken against the person in breach of the contract. Okay. Now, I think Faban, I had said that we'll discuss the whole the freedom problem, and I didn't really address that so much in this like with these random notes that I had. The whole issue of, like I said here, but to the liberal mind, the main thing isn't how were they treated. Yeah, sure, Islam treated them great. Okay, they were the best slaves, or they were treated the best slaves in the entire human history. But that's not what the liberal mind is focused on. The liberal mind is focused on the fact that you're owning someone and they don't have the ability to walk away. So now when I speak to my friend, who you guys know, but I don't want to take his name like on the recording. Maybe I could tell you guys afterwards. But what he was saying is that for like the most fundamental principle of liberalism is basically that is of the self, right? This everything is centered around the self. We have certain innate human rights, um innate human rights, and one of those things includes that a person cannot own me. Okay, that we don't even agree with that fundamentally, right? Do we say that there are fundamental human rights of of a person being able to do whatever they want? No, really, we don't. Allah Ta'ala, as He says, well, okay, sure. There's ayat of وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam that Allah Ta'ala has given mankind nobility. He has made man noble. Allah Ta'ala says, I'm forgetting how the ayah starts, but the ayah in Surah Hujurat, من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. That Allah Ta'ala He made men and women, He made certain tribes, and they're all the same in terms of their, where is it at? That the people are all equal in ubudiyah, in enslavement to Allah Ta'ala. But there's one thing that Allah Ta'ala says that gives virtue of one person over another, and that is, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. It is the taqwa, is obedience to Allah Ta'ala that gives a person virtue over another in the sight of Allah Ta'ala. Okay? So we don't even have this concept of centering our whole philosophy being centered around the individual. But like literally every single thing is from Allah Ta'ala. We're nothing. Allah Ta'ala, um we don't even deserve anything. We don't even deserve this. Well, like the US has like such a focus on like freedom and the pursuit of happiness. Like where did that, like that's not something that you find in our deen. But and we are Allah Ta'ala says, Wallahu al-ghaniyyu wa antum al-fuqara. And it's that Allah Ta'ala is the one who has everything and we are actually weak in front of him. So like we don't even agree on that principle of the liberal mind, how the liberal mind thinks about how like the human about like these innate human rights. Okay, Now, if we were to concede to this argument to say that, um, yeah, a person has this human right of being free. Okay, we would both agree that if a person was to commit a crime, then that person has their rights taken away, right? If a person like commits a crime, they go to jail. In that jail, they're not allowed to do many things, a lot of things. Their life is literally just being stuck in a 10 by 12 for however many amount of years. Similarly, if we take that same principle, is kufr not the worst crime, right? Therefore, they could be taken into a certain type of captivity and be held in that state until XYZ happens. But kufr is such a crime that, of course, like if a Muslim army was to take over a town, they don't take the Muslims as war prisoners, right? They just bring them back. So it's the kufr that's being treated as a crime, and it's due to that these people will be um, enslaved. That's if you want to just accept their premise and then try to work off of that. Any questions? I know still a bit jumbled. That's probably like the thing I say most in this class. Yeah, what's up? Mm. Yeah, you can go ahead now. That's pretty much it. I don't really know what else to add. Well, I want to double check, but right as of right now, like I don't think so. Yeah, she would. That's it. Like no going back on it. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know where you're about to go for this. Okay, like you said, opening a can of worms. So how about that? You let me like look at this topic some more, and then we could talk about it another time. If that's cool with you. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, can you? Well, we'll talk about them. Inshallah, we will definitely talk about them. But I think I don't want to just like I'm terrible at giving answers off the top of my head, honestly. Okay, so you're fine. Do you have any questions regarding like this discussion though? Okay, cool. Yeah. No, I think yeah. If you just send me those questions, and then we could talk about it either here or I could just try to private message you, inshallah. That's the good thing about this class is that I mean there's a lot of good things. What's it called? But one of the thing is like I don't think I've ever like researched this topic before. So it gave me the opportunity, alhamdulillah, to be able to look into this. Mhm. Hmm. Mm. Yeah. No, I still, you weren't part of my, like Quran group last year, right? I had Rakeen, I had Ibad, Abdullah Gangohi, Abdullah Alam, and George. So that I try to ask them for like a list to make of just like topics that like there's obviously a lot of things that we could talk about, like atheism being the biggest thing, and like liberalism, like these philosophy, all these different types of isms, feminism, and all that stuff, which that then weird obviously does address. But then there's like sometimes because there's just so many things, like you just can't get to them all sometimes. So then I was trying to make a list of those things that sometimes just don't get covered. So definitely these things should that you're probably gonna send that message about. I think probably should be added to that list. And then like if we have like a seminar per issue, like that should like fill that hole, no? Inshallah. Yeah. Maybe if I just become a better presenter, I could try to do 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 a presentation on this. Okay. Anyways, um, any other questions? Thoban, you got anything? Yeah, for sure. Inshallah. All right. That's just my 2 cents on the whole slavery. That's why he's in med school, man. Mhm. A lot of it is just like we know our information and like okay, for example, like this whole slavery thing, like it's Samir now Atana. Like I've heard it and I'm just like, okay, that's the shit what Sharia says. Like I can't, like I personally never really had a problem with it. Right? It's not something that I'm just like, oh man, that's bad. We allow that. I was like, okay, Samir now Atana. Allah Taala ordered something. Like what are we gonna like? We're gonna refuse? La yus'alu amma yaf'alu wa hum yus'alun, right? Allah Taala isn't gonna be asked about what he did. We're gonna be asked about what we did. But then that's like a terrible quality for a Molana because then that just means I'm just not gonna be so investigative or I'm not gonna need information that people are gonna require of me, right? Like I'm not gonna have like the willpower to go out and learn about this topic to be able to inform others who might come ask me about this topic. So that's one thing. Where was I going off with that? Yeah, all these and then all these other topics there are that inshallah we can talk about too. I don't know where I even came off with that topic. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yeah, they would convert. No, it's still slaves. They still end up being slaves, but then they continued. The suburb of entering into it is kufr, but just because like they become Muslim doesn't change that beginning how they came into their slaveness. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. It wouldn't change like the the fact that they're slaves. Hmm. Hopefully, I'm not misremembering that. I'll look at it. Yeah. Yo, I'm not sure, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I, so you asking like, can I'm okay. I looked that up. So let me just hear the question one more time. Okay, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up. From what I'm thinking right now is that if that guy is taken as a slave, the master, then he doesn't own the Muslim guy anymore. So that contract seems like it might just break. That's just like off the top of my head. I definitely would want to look that up. So I'll let you know, inshallah. Um, because like a slave can't really like own anything for himself, right? So if that guy who just got who's living in a certain town and his town just got taken over by Muslim people, then that guy wouldn't really own that his slave anymore. Therefore, it's setting him free automatically, possibly. That's just what, again, that's just what's coming off the top of my head. But yeah, we are at Surah Shams. Surah Shams is okay, I was reading Alama Biqai's work, which is known as which is known as yeah, this is Nazm al-Durar. Nazm al-Durar fi tanasubi ayati wa sur. And dude, he was going off. Okay, so if we have time at the end, inshallah, we can read some of that. If not, it's still like really cool. So I'll mention it if in the beginning of the next class, but it was really cool. Anyways, Surat al-Shams. Any of you guys want to translate it? Or should I just, I got 20 minutes, so you guys want to go for it? So, Ban, Arsalan? No? Alright, it's fine. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yeah, go ahead. You good. Take your time. Yep. Yep. والليل إذا يغشاها means غش. No, غشية يغشى, I believe is a fi'l, is like هل أتاك حديث الغاشية, the thing that overtakes something. So the layl overtakes the sun. The nighttime it overtakes the brightness of the sun, right? Yeah, yeah, you can go. Until I number 10, if possible. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, by the soul. Yes, exactly. No, no, no. The qasams are done. The qasams are done. Like it's not by the like it's wal layli was sama'i wal like wal ardi. They're all the qasams, right? Like wallahi by Allah. Like Allah Ta'ala is taking the oath. But then qad aflaha is just like a jumla. Qad aflaha man zakaha. The one who's purified it has obtained successes. It's not saying like by the one who's purified it. You know what I'm saying? This is actually the jawabul qasam. That the reason all these oaths were taken were to emphasize the fact that the one who has purified the nafs, qad aflah. He's the one who is successful. Yes. Would you say so, man? Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, I saw on you. What came up in Hansware? Please tell me the recording did not stop. Okay, great. Okay, what came up in Hansware? I never looked at Qad in Hansware. It says Qad particle, a harf, with follows perfect. What? Fall dot perf dot indicates the termination of an action. Yeah, I don't know what buddy means over there either. Maybe if I read the Arabic, in all honesty, that would probably make more sense. Inshallah. Yeah, sure, we can go over that. Usually, yeah, you're right. When we translate qad, we only think of like qad al-ta'kid, like most definitely, right? But yeah, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other reasons. We can even, yeah, inshallah. All right, قد أفلح من زكاها. You were saying, Saban? No, no, yeah, that's you said the I think the pollutes one. You said it for the first ayah. The pollutes, well, the one who pollutes it will suffer failure. That's for وقد خاب من دساها. Okay, we can stop there. 1 to 10, inshallah. Okay. والشمس. Okay, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والشمس وضحاها. So Allah Ta'ala takes an oath by the sun and by its light. So He says, another good tafsir that you guys could use, inshallah, is the tafsir of At-Tasheel li'ulum al-Tanzil by Ibn Juzay al-Kalbi. Okay, this is I would say like a step above Safwa. He kind of goes into a bit more details per word, whereas Safwa, what he does is kind of gives like he gives an Arabic translation for the ayah, right? Like he makes it into a more like easier Arabic, or he like maybe like if the ayah is like very condensed, and he'll include like what are all the mahzuf words and all that type of stuff. What Tasheel does is gives you a lot of different opinions for the per ayah. What are they? What are like the what's the majority opinion? What's like the second most popular opinion as to what this ayah is referring to and stuff. So for example, even in the first ayah, والشمس وضحاها الضحى ارتفاع الضوء وكمالها وكماله. Um, the duha, what is okay? So by the sun and its duha. What is duha? It means for the sun to rise up past ishraq time, and its light has now completely become full. So of course, like at Fajr time, the light of the sun is just very weak, and then when you go just a little bit later, then it's still not completely like bright and sunny outside. The duha is talking about right when it becomes that point of being super bright and super sunny. That's the duha. والضحى بالفتح والمد والضحاء بعد ذلك إلى الزوال. So that time, once it reaches that moment, and then all the way into the time of zawal, where the sun reaches its zenith, that's called ضحى. وقيل الضحى النهار كله. And it said that وقيل that the duha refers to pretty much the entire daytime. It's just another. Arsalan, you mind if I mute you real quick? No, you're good. You're good. You're good. Okay. والأول هو المعروف في اللغة. So what's really intended here is that time of duha, which is like uh, when the sun it's fajr time has been over and now it's become completely bright and sunny outside. والقمر إذا تلاها أي تبعها تلا يتلو تلوا تلاوة. تلا يتلو تلوا means for someone to like follow in someone's footsteps. So والقمر إذا تلاها, and by the moon when the moon follows the footsteps of the sun. So this ha damir for pretty much from this ayah all the way until ayah number, where is it at? Yeah, okay, we'll just take each ayah at a time. So this ha damir إذا تلاها is referring to ash-shams. So by the moon and when it follows the sun. So أي تبعها وفي تبع وفي تبعه لها ثلاثة أقوال. There's three opinions as to what does تلاها mean. Like what does it mean for the moon to follow the sun? What does that mean exactly? أي يتبعها في كثرة الضوء, يعني the moon, although it doesn't provide as much light as the sun, it follows it in that sense that it also is a factor in providing light for us at nighttime. لأن أضواء الكواكب بعد الشمس لأنه أضواء الكواكب بعد الشمس, because it's the brightest, like كواكب. You translate it as star usually, but of course it's not how it's being referred to here. But the brightest object in space after the sun for us. ولا سيما ليلة البدر, especially on those nights when the moon is full and it provides a lot of light. والآخر والآخر أنه يتبعها في طلوعه, that it actually follows in its rising. لأنه يطلع بعد غروبها وذلك في النصف الأول من الشهر. Because it's actually okay. So if you look at it in the aspect of the daytime, then follows it is the nighttime. والثالث أن تبعه لها أخذه من نورها. And this is actually, like as you can see, is mentioned in our classical books, that it's the moon is what is only gets its light from the sun. So that's how it follows it. Okay. وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, and by the daytime when it illuminates it, it كشفها وأظهرها, يعني the daytime is the time in which that the sun is able to shine. والضمير المفعول جلاها للشمس والضمير الفاعل للنهار لأن الشمس تتجلى بالنهار فكأنه هو الذي جلاها. قيل. Okay, so as he says, the maf'ul bihi is referring to ash-shams jallaha, and then the fa'il of this jalla, the nahar, is the fa'il. So jalla naharu ash-shamsa. وقيل الضمير الفاعل لله وقيل الضمير المفعول للظلمة أو للأرض أو للدنيا وهذا كله بعيد. These opinions are weak. Okay, so he says this is a principle that you guys already know. I've said this before. Actually, in Arsalan, I think you asked a question about it. So he says that الضمير الفاعل, the damir that is for Jalla is referring to Allah Ta'ala, and the maf'ul bihi ha is referring to Zulma or Ard or Dunya. It's referring to like the earth and how Allah Ta'ala is the one who illuminates the earth. Is that a correct statement? Allah Ta'ala illuminates the earth? Yes, it is. But why does that, most likely that's not what's being referred to here? Because ضمائر need مرجع G. It needs, like, you can't just say, I can't just come up to you and be like, yeah, he's awesome. You have to be you have to have like a proper pronoun to be referring back to or you have to have a proper noun to use that pronoun to refer back to them, right? You say Mufti Zim gives such an amazing khutbah. He's awesome. Okay, now do you know that he is referring to Mufti Zim? Allah Ta'ala's did not come up at all in the surah, was Shamsi, right? We only read 3 ayahs so far. His name did. So you can't just say that the huwa in Jalla is referring to Allah Ta'ala. You can't say that this ha damir is referring to Al-Ard, or dunya, that didn't even come up yet. So just based off the context and the nahu of it, it's referring to what's already been mentioned. So jallaha, jallal naharu ash-shamsa. Okay, which is the shams being maful bihi. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, and by the night when it completely overtakes it. Again, يَغْشَى اللَّيْلُ الشَّمْسَ. It's like the night is overtaking the sun in a sense, right? Because it's blocking it out, quote unquote. So يغطيها والضمير المفعول للشمس والضمير فاعل لليل على الأصح. So the most correct opinion is that say the same thing as the last one, that the fa'il of these fi'ils is the word that's being mentioned, the muqsam عليه والنهار والليل, and then the maf'ul is الشمس. Okay, now this is gonna actually I don't think so. Never mind. والسماء وما بناها. Okay, so Ban, how did you translate this again? وما بناها والسماء وما بناها. So Ban, yeah, number five. You said by the one who has built it. Okay. Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. No, I get. No, it's not incorrect because there's two opinions as to what this means. No, no, it's not. It's not wrong. Okay, so والسماء وما بناها قيل إن ما في قوله وما بناها وما طحاها وما سواها. So now, if you were to translate it as وما بناها, what you're really saying is that this is ومن بناها, because you don't say ما, you say ما for غير عاقل, right? You say ما, like ما هذه الكتاب. You don't say من هذه الكتاب, correct? So what is this ma here for? So there's two opinions. Some people say, or some of the mufassirun and the nuhat, the linguists, the nahu scholars say that this ma is in the meaning of man, which is an acceptable meaning for like ma. It sometimes comes in the meaning of man. That sometimes you use the ma for when you're actually referring to the aqil as well. Or you say man. Sometimes you like instead of saying man huwa, you say ma huwa. Okay. So وقيل إنما في قوله وما بداها وما طحاها وما سواها in ayah 5, 6, and 7. It's موصولة بمعنى من والمراد الله تعالى. So Allah Ta'ala takes an oath by um, the sky, the heavens, and He says what ومن بناها, and by the one who has created it, the one who has created it. Okay, or it could be this ma. The second opinion is that it is ma مصدرية. Okay, وقيل إنها مصدرية كأنه قال والسماء وبنيانها. And by the, so how would you translate it? If you take it in the ma to mean مصدرية, you would translate it as um, and by the heavens, by the skies, وبنيانها, and by this amazing creation of the construction of these skies, like out of like an amazement, like just wow, like this is amazing and complex design of the skies. Does that make sense? مصدرية. وضعف الزمخشري هذا بقوله فألهمها، فإن المراد الله بالاتفاق، فهذا القول يؤدي إلى فساد النظم. وضعف بعضهم كونها موصولة بتقديم ذكر المخلوقات على الخالق، فإن قيل لمعادلة عن ما. Okay, we don't need to go into extra detail. So there's some now. Obviously, there's two opinions, right? So then you get into like the debates between like the mufassirun and the nuhat. They give the reason as to why they prefer one over the other and stuff. But we could just skip that. Just know that there's two opinions. Tahaha a maddaha, the one who spread it out. Well, okay. Oh, sorry, you didn't even mention the full ayah. Okay, was-sama'i wa ma banaha wal ardi, right? Yeah, وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا, ayah number 6, and by the earth and the one who spread it. So right now we'll treat ma as man, by the earth and the one by Allah Ta'ala who spread it, who spread the earth. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا, and by the individual, by the soul, and the one who did taswiyah of it, and the one who fashioned it, the one who created it, the one who gave it all of its details. تسوية النفس إكمال عقلها وفهمها. What does it mean to do taswiyah of the nafs. So sawwallahu an nafsa or an nufus, right? Sawwaha means Allah Ta'ala is the one who did taswiyah of ha, referring to an nafs. Make sense? So the ha referring to nafs. Just like in what's it called? Even in the previous ayah, was-sama'i wa ma banaha. Bana Allahu, banaha Allah. Okay, Allah Ta'ala created it. What is it referring to? As-sama'i. Okay. Wal-ardi wa ma tahaha. Okay, tahaha Allahu. Allah Ta'ala created, Allah Ta'ala flattened it out. What is it? Wal-ardi wa ma tahaha. Okay, wa nafsi wa ma sawaha. So, فإن قيل لما نكر النفس. Why did Allah Ta'ala mention the Tankir version? Okay, let's just see if this is. Okay, forget that. فألهمها فجورها وتقواها أي عرفها طرق الفجور والتقوى وجعل لها قوة يصح معها اكتساب أحد الأمرين. So, فألهمها فجورها وتقواها. Allah Ta'ala let's see how you translate it. ألهمها فجورها وتقواها and informed it with consciousness of its wickedness and its righteousness, and informed it of its with consciousness of its wickedness and its righteousness. Allah Ta'ala gave the nafs the ability to be able to tell right from wrong. Okay? فألهمها فجورها أي عرفها طرق الفجور والتقوى. Allah Ta'ala gave it the ability of recognizing fujur, of wrong, and wattaqwa, and that which is right. Yes? Gigi. Inspire. Oh no, that's not a thing. Ilham is like that which is for no, yeah. Non-prophets could get ilham. That was pretty much your question, right? We say that ilham and wahi and those things are specifically for prophets. That was going to be your question. Hello? Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me? Our salon froze, didn't he? I didn't freeze. Right? You can hear me, right? Oban? Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, cool. All right. All right. No, I thought. Salon, can you hear me now, bud? Okay, cool. You okay? So what I had said was your question is basically, is it possible for non-prophets to get ilham? Yeah, yeah. That's what happens to like the awliya and stuff. Like Allah Ta'ala inspires them to towards certain things and stuff. Yeah. That's what that is. Hmm. Oh, look at that. He's a pious guy too. MashaAllah. Yeah, let me find the definition of ilham. Oh, it's already nine. I'm sorry. Mm, alhamaha. Yes, okay, but I'll look up the definition exactly and why it's like what exactly is the difference between ilham and wahi and between like revelation, and then we could talk about this on Monday, right? Yeah, Monday, inshallah. Okay, yeah, but it's already 9:02. Sorry, I just noticed the time. Inshallah, we can stop here. سبحان الله بحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Okay, so you were gonna send your question, Arsalan. Thoban, you had the question about the what happens to a Muslim guy who's owned by a non-Muslim and then the Muslims take over that land. Does that guy become free? I need to look that up. Second, what was the third thing? This Ilham Wahi thing. Was there anything else? Was there anything else? Okay, for sure. Okay, sorry for going over time, guys. Assalamu alaikum.